that this was actually a war dance, it was banned. So throughout all of the colonies, of the British colonies, those kind of things were outlawed. So that is why I think that the landship could not really resurface because a lot of these things were outlawed. Anything, military drills or so forth, were not allowed. Conch shells, horns, anything, drums were banned. So it was only after 1838 that probably the landship could actually have functioned again as an institution. You had a question?
How long have they been serving?
Huh? On the landship? Well, I was doing my master's in art history, and in African art actually is my specialty. And it is when I came across the Asafo, because their flags were out of applique. There's a lot of embroidery, and the images and so forth of what they meant were very important. And that is when I started my special research on the Asafo. From, yes, 1994.
So your theory is that the Asafo would have been continued in Barbados through the people who came to this.
Yes.
And after it was suppressed by the British,
Yes.
that it then re-emerged in the form of the landship.
Yes.
With the military costumes and so on.
Very much so. To hide the actual, the real purpose, which was still, just like in Brazil, we all know capoeira was not really a dance. It was an African martial art, which came from Angola. But they had, it was outlawed, and they brought it back in as a dance. They done with the bear and bow, which is a gourd, and they play it on their bellies with a stone. And so keeping the rhythm as well with the drum and stuff. So they could do that. And also the matalele is another dance, which is done also in Brazil. So a lot of those things had to be hidden in terms of being military, being able to fight, anything that would do with killing of especially the colonials would have been outlawed. And they then had their militia to make sure these things were kept.
So for the British, what was the purpose of the landship? Entertainment?
Yes. So, and then of course over the years, then it lost, many of them lost the understanding of the purpose. And that is something that would happen in any institution, as long as it has, I'm not saying that it has outlived its purpose at all, but it has become a part of our cultural landscape, and that is where it remains. Many of the older ones have not taken the time to really understand it, be interested in this, see it as something probably just fun. But it was there as a reminder of, don't let this happen again.
I want to ask a question.
Yes, please.
How do you account for the landship resurfacing or the Asafo resurfacing in Barbados after being cut off for so long?
Cut off does not mean it has died. It means it was
I mean
under.
the people that come here
Yes.
as slaves will have been cut off from this, and then probably generations on top of generations to the past as well.
Yes.
So
It was still being practiced in Africa. The Asafo was still
but
there.
not in Barbados.
Not in
That
Barbados.
is why you want to try to see how you can make the connection between that and something that would have been dead in Barbados at this point in time. At that point in time.
How long?
I don't mean, I don't know.
Because we still have people coming in up to 1800,
Right.
coming from Ghana,
Mm.
right? Up to when ending of the slave trade, 1807, 1806, 1807. So And then by 1838, 38 was freedom. So a lot of things will still have been able to, people's memories, older ones, and then still teaching the younger ones. Because I'm sure that that is something that would have been done on the, well, at night.
We don't know that it didn't
Yes.
continue, you know.
We don't.
But quite, as you say, up
Yes.
in the rural, far away from anything, or
Yes.
I don't know.
Possible.
Yes.
Very possible.
And it only needs a few people to remember for that thing to then continue on and grow again.
So I am trying to look for those linkages. As I said, it is only my theory. It is not set in stone, but hopefully that we will be able to get probably some of the older members of the Landship who could bring some new ideas again to what was done or what was not done, some of the calls, and so also we can get a better understanding of the Landship and then go back to look in to see how that connection would
But
work.
you see, that's my exact point. Because, say up to the 1970s, we had a fairly vibrant Landship. Within 31 years, dead. And this is not the British now forcing you to stop
Right.
it.
Yes.
It's 30 years, it's only 30 years.
Well, there are lots of things that would have the whole landscape of Barbados, education-wise, was still very British. And we are still very class-conscious status. So those are some of the reasons why it would not have, I nearly said, even to get people to think about coming to function, to come and learn about the Landship. Some people will still have a problem with it because it is something very much in our way of life.
That has occurred just recently too, so
Yes.
nothing has changed.
Hasn't really changed.
But what I am saying is that if it was, number one, there seemed to be an element of secrecy that would have maintained it. Because if you are operating as slaves and this is your own festival, this is your way of relating, I don't think the slaves at that time were able to come and openly do their stuff. So this would have sort of been an underground secret. If the susu was being practiced back then, we do not know necessarily what sort of money exchange there was, if there was. But again, this would have to be something that was done secretly.
Yes.
Then it was also and if we are seeing it then also as a form of quiet rebellion. Again, it is operating underground.
Yes.
It is not something that you are going to come out and publicly do. Then, what I'm saying is that having in this time, it may have seemed to lost its significance because now we have banks. The socialization is different. We no longer have to depend on that part of our activities. Maybe people don't think it is important anymore to start the quiet rebellion, you know. So it might be just that the purposes don't seem to be so strongly. And as you said, we now see it as just a cultural experience. You likened it to in Brazil with the capero. So now what we are seeing more of is the dance, more so than a means of survival. Because I think that when I did my little study on it when it was at community college, what I saw was that it was a quiet means of survival for the people. So maybe that element is not now as important to the people of Barbados.
I only have one comment I would like to make in response to that. Number one, where we still get money from, stuff that we do. And there's another part of that.
They grew. They had pigs, they had chickens. So therefore they still made money those Sunday morning markets. So you could still save many of them. And so how were you able to pay for your manumission? There were people who were manumitted by their own selves. So they had money. Right. You had to still pay at least £100 and so forth for your manumission.
Right.
People paid for their own selves to be free. So they had to be handling some kind of money, and maybe it was through a susu that they were able to get the money to pay. So that is another thought there. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's good because now you're starting to think, you know, not only think like Europeans, but you have to understand that the way how Africans did things, still different. People were, I mentioned about children coming to the Caribbean without parents. And it is so strange. We have the saying, it takes a village to raise, thank you. But people are still thinking in terms of this nuclear family thing. If you don't have mother or father, that a child can survive and wouldn't come up with the same knowledge and so forth. Many women raise children on their own without men around, and these are men, big men in society that bring society and all of that. But we do not know what really made them the way they were. And it is only, we can only suppose, we can only go back and look at some of those areas and use it, have like the Asafo as a contrast to see, and even look now how they behave, what happened to them. They lost a lot of their importance in the Ghanaian society with the British. And remember that the British worked on us in the Caribbean first and then went into Africa. So a lot of things that they were able to learn about us here, they went straight in and cut it off one time. They knew that we were making money and keeping the money in the bank. They wanted us to put the money in their banks. Same way how they wanted us to buy their things like rice, and they tell us now that the breadfruit had a germ, and many people cut down the breadfruit trees because they were told, and it wasn't true. So it made, you know, cut down the breadfruit tree and you going into the supermarket or wherever to go and buy rice and not use the breadfruit. To the point that in places like Cuba, they don't use breadfruit. Breadfruit is for the pig. They don't eat breadfruit. Not many. So, well anyway, I must say thank you very much. It was very hard.
Before you go,
Yes.
this is coming, sorry. You showed the picture earlier of the Asafo, and you had that there were a lot of female captains.
I
Yet
didn't say a lot. There were some.
there were female captains.
Yes.
Yeah, that didn't kind of translate to our society. Was that a European construct where you have that patriarchal society, so then it was pushed onto the landship, or it just had a long
Well, let's put it this way. When it came to the Asafo elders, there were men who were privy to the rituals that, like, dealing with the installment of the king or the destallment. Because if a king is not doing what you have a choice, you leave or you die. So it's the men who would be used. I'm not saying that there aren't women who would have been involved, but because look, who has to give a lot of the knowledge and give the name of the candidate for the new Asante when one dies? It's the Queen Mother. So theirs was very matriarchal, but being in a society like ours, where everything was more or less controlled by the men, I would say yes. That's why we would probably not have females at that level of the landship. Because it's still looking with the Navy, it's only late that women went into those aspects of those organizations.
So our rebellion then wasn't very quiet in terms of the landship. Because you imagine you are subverted, your culture is subverted, it's not appreciated, and you're supposed to hide it. And you're still in the streets parading, you know, as the landship, even though you're using the naval regalia and so on. And the English, the European are looking at you like, oh, look, they're trying to imitate us. When really the landship is looking at them like, look how we are fooling you. And using our culture in using your own
In
tool.
your face.
So I think that's bold-faced rebellion. I'm not sure
That
if
is
we were
bold.
subverted yet.
But a lot of people have not come to look at us with having that much intelligence. Because you know that when they took many of the slaves, it is said that they walked them around like a baobab tree, so to make them forget Africa. That all those things were done. So when you came from Africa and you came to the Caribbean, you came tabula rasa, an empty brain. So anything that you learned would now be as a result of what you learned in Barbados. Nothing, you knew nothing before.
And that's what's happening now. Because now we are children not know and appreciate our culture as they should. So therefore they're just blowing in the breeze to anything that will
Because
be
they don't know.
people without a knowledge of their past history or culture.
Yes, they lose it. And they behave as if they have none.
None.
So that is why I'm still saying places like, we still have to give credit to places like Barbados Community College because their students, at least in fine arts, must do culture. They must do cultural studies one semester. Every single one. Or in music, in theater, in dance, and in the visual arts. And fashion. All of them must do. So,
Since you're going to close, maybe you could give the short answers for these two. Are there competing theories for the origin of the landship?
I believe that Dr. Addison Downs has put forward that the Kru people from Sierra Leone, they were in Barbados, in fact, and they were repatriated to Sierra Leone. And they took the knowledge of the landship and say that they set up docks and so forth that had ships and so forth on the outside. So,
And the other one is, do you see the landship in the Caribbean countries with high degree of similarity? So you think that the Asapa only came to Barbados?
no.
So why would you think
But
that?
maybe the environment was conducive for its continuation on the earth. Because I'm saying it most likely could have been in places like Antigua. But as I said, it could become just defunct. You just lose your purpose, lose the meaning. And it just gone.
I think to our location, where Barbados is flat, we had nowhere to run to, unlike Jamaica where you have the hills and all those things. So we had to kind of assimilate culture of other, as well as try to keep our own. So I think under that kind of guise, we have to, because we have this reputation as being very easygoing, and you know, the Europeans had more impact on us than in other cultures. So I think really just location, we had nowhere to go. So we had to come up with our own thing.
That's why they showed the colonial on horseback chasing us. Nowhere to go.
Just your question, because your question is one thing that kind of intrigued me personally. But there are across Central America, for example, the Garifuna people that, well, they don't use the kettle drum. They use the ordinary drum, but they dance just like how we used to dance. And of
Doing the
course,
punta.
Right, well, Punta is one,
One of the-
but Punta is something different to what I'm talking about. This is like an indigenous dance. Whereas Punta is a kind of a modern
Yeah.
mixture. And then you had, I saw a band in St. Kitts, and there's also some in Guyana,
Yes.
similar to the Tuk band, the band with the
They do
flute
have.
and drum.
And they use, but it's a code that they use, like how we have the donkey man, they have a code built out of the same papier mache and so forth, and they have him riding and so forth. In Cuba too, they still have some of those things.
But the
So
thing
we
about
see-
Cuba is that there's a whole community of Barbadians in Cuba.
Barbadians there, yes. Yes.
Only last night I was in a conversation with some people about was learning with some boys, and this question came up. And they believe that because of our standard of living over the years, has
Cause the
lynching of the landship because of our standard of living. I believe this might be a different question, but I'm just asking what you. I supported him. Maybe I was wrong.
No.
Can you answer that again? I missed the.
Our standard of living
It's the educational,
has.
it's the educational. Has caused us to lose that association with the landship.
Yes.
And therefore it has depleted, so where we had 100 ships, we don't have one.
Because I was when I joined the landship in the 70s, during the 70s, early 80s, we were able to we had a total of 700 people, members. And then come into the early 90s, we went so until now. And he said, I'm telling you, Captain, I don't know, it's because of
But quite apart from standard of living, it's also an institution that were developed. The point that this, I think he was making about the banks and the other institutions that would do the things that the landship would formerly have done. The Government Savings Bank, as a matter of fact, was one of the institutions that they say kind of lessened the popularity of what friendly societies, you know, the landship is a friendly society. But the friendly societies really, the peak of their existence was in the 1940s, and then it started to come down as institutions and standard of living went up. But what I always say is that the very thing that allowed us to reach a stage of sophistication and probably better standard of living is the very thing now that we're trying to trample under our feet.
What I did say though, what I did in my view was that there is still a voice that we can identify it. Because when we look at the emergence of cooperatives, the cooperatives now in Barbados, they have no given real competition to the banks. They're going very similar to banks. But I do believe that the cooperatives of the people owning the shares and so on are really, that they have really come out of the soup because you saw them emerging over the years. And even though we may think that the bank has triumphed, notice that we have now lost the Barbados National Bank.
Yes.
Right? And that the question came whether the cooperative organization should not have invested and should not have bought things like Clipboard, those places that came into trouble. So what I saw is that the origins of that cooperative society is still making its mark in the Barbadian society.
And there's only one thing really, but the friendly society, a credit union is under certain amount of government. friendly society is not. So whereas for example, credit union, they have to ask you for security or whatever. In certain cases, like mortgages and stuff, that does not obtain with the landship.
But we're talking about the way things have developed over time.
Agreed. But I'm saying that there's a little bit more
Yeah.
that the friendly society can do, which the cooperatives or the credit unions are doing today,
Yeah, yeah.
or can do today. But we will talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. More the economic aspect of that.
Yes. So at this, I lay my end off here, and thank you very much for your feedback and participation. It will encourage me now to go start doing more research, but on a different level.